Hi, my name's Felicella. I'm a current artist living and working in Dallas, Texas. We like to call it Oak Cliff, my side of town. My mediums, especially my medium of choice these days, is performance art, but I also work in installation, new media, and photography. I'm born and raised Yankee that has gone rogue and has lived in Dallas, Texas in general now, for quite some time. The ideas of my work come from lots of different places. A lot of it's rooted in experiences in my own life. I'd like to think that a lot of my work swirls around just the concept of the human condition and the psychology of the human brain and how we process and go through this world in an emotional state. So having a root in photography, subjects have always been people for most of my work, and I always worked with the idea of thinking of a moving object and then creating one moment in that time that I liked. The thing that was really missing is the connectivity to people themselves, and so my connection to this medium is that I finally get to use one of my favorite things in life as a medium, which is people. And to figure out how people work and how they will interact in this work is probably one of my favorite parts. My work could take years from idea to what the viewer would consider complete. The beauty of performance work that I'm really enjoying is that I can create some incredibly complex ideas, and then I get to go on a journey figure out exactly how that is going to happen. A piece, for instance, Visible Shell, which, yes, for most people seemed long and arduous because it was a 48-hour actual visual performance. The piece itself was a year and a half of my life. So, from idea to completion, it's everything is different, and every journey is going to take me somewhere else. I can't wait to show some of the new ones that I've been working on. One of them's been under my hat for over 3 years now, and I have a couple other that are over the year marker as well. So it takes a long time. The one thing that I always try to do and try to remember is to never stop concepting. Just keep journals. I may not be able to do them for 10 years, but if the brain has the idea now, doesn't mean the brain's going to have the idea later, so might as well store it. What goes into a piece is far greater than what people see. My objective and my goal is for people to only see what the piece is intended to be visually. But for safety and for whatever else, in order to have success in the piece, that requires a lot of planning and structure, and everything is different. Whether I'm having to have meetings and find hydrologists, geologists, psychologists, psychiatrists, regular doctors, dietitians, full-on, just health. Health is a big concern. And then, depending on where I'm working on a piece right now. It is physically about this region, so I have to actually go and collect what is native to this region for certain objects. I have to have things made, so there's a lot of research, period. I try to keep everything as authentic to the idea. I want people to be and feel immersed into the concept, and the way to do that is to do your proper, research and due diligence. So it takes a long time. Having grown up being one of the shyest kids you would have ever met, the one that walked the perimeter of the recessed garden, to have their own thoughts and live in their own world, to end up in performance art is an interesting idea. But I've never been more in love with a medium as I am with it. Connecting with people and connecting with ideas it's the fuel to my fire. So to have found something that is strictly for community engagement and interaction, I can't think of something that feeds that creative bone, that creative need better. biggest challenges with performance art, particularly the work that my brain keeps concepting, is that it involves interaction with other people. And people actually are a physical part of the piece. So it's my job to get them to understand their interaction and for it to happen. So one of the biggest challenges about the work is that we're talking about people, you know. You can prepare and plan as best as you possibly can, talk to as million people, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it. It's wicked scary, and it's incredibly challenging. So one of my biggest goals as an artist is that myth. You know, a lot of people have that stigma to art, that it is unreachable, unattainable, and a lot of people would never even walk through a gallery or a museum's door. I want to take the work outside that realm. I want to connect with the people that wouldn't necessarily connect with the work. Now, that doesn't mean I don't take it to art institutions and art places, because I do, and I'm more than happy to. But I want to try to put this work in every kind of situation. And that's risky. And as far as failure or success goes with my work, well, I think if I can try to stay as relevant to current society as possible, then I stand a chance. So a lot of people ask where these ideas come from. They come from some of my own struggles that I deal with in my mind, what it's like for me to interact with the world. They come from observations. I like to watch the world interact with itself. I find the conformity in life, those things that people just can't help but want to be curious about. They come a lot from a psychological standpoint. What if there was something in the world that could help somebody do something, release something, go and be something? They come from there. But at the root of it all, the one core factor in everything I do is the human being. And luckily, we're relatively complex. So hopefully I won't be running out of any ideas anytime soon. Visible Shell was an idea that just came out of nowhere one day. And it's about American society in two stages. One, that as Americans, we live a life that's so fast-paced that we are losing the ability to simply sit still. And because we cannot sit still, we're also losing the ability to contemplate the actual emotions and thoughts that are happening in our own lives. And the second stage of that is that in American society, to display actual emotion is considered a weakness. So for 48 hours, at its core, there were a lot more different aspects of it. But for 48 hours, I simply put myself in an acrylic box designed to the shape of my body to just sit, think, write, and feel completely open, vulnerable, and viewable by any and all. This The Pull was a piece that I wanted to do something a little more intimate, a little bit more connection, a lot more of the observation versus the doer experience. And so it was based around the concept of tug of war. It's all about friction in life, how sometimes friction is a good thing, and fun, enjoyable, the beginning of relationships, and how friction can be a bad thing. It can lead to pain, struggle. So what better concept than something so simple as tug of war? The name itself, resist the pull. The pull is an actual term used in professional tug of war competitions that happen overseas. And the pull is the exact moment that the tension happens on the line. So that piece is all about tension and all about experience. it creates different types of reactions and responses. Something that I just can't get a grasp of is the concept of grandstanding. And since naturally it bothers me, I decided I had to do it. And this piece, the interaction in this piece, I used today's technology as the glue. For over a 24-hour window, I opened up my media channels for people to send me comments that they thought I would never say about myself, whether it be positive or negative. And I compiled all of these statements and placed myself on a pedestal in a theater, and I read them out loud via microphone. And that was the first time that I ever saw them to my face. It was a very raw piece. It was very much about how the world perceives us versus how we think the world perceives us. It's a very interesting, very, very humbling, very interesting to hear the good and the bad, and to realize that you have no idea what the world thinks about you. And it came off very well. Unburden is a concept based on the idea of transfer of human emotion. The way that I displayed this is that I worked myself as a vessel, as a container. I think the most successful way to transfer human emotion is from one person to another. So if you had the chance to unburden yourself unto another person who reacted on nothing, said nothing, and is sworn to secrecy about this burden for the entirety of her life, would you do it? So I've created a prison scenario where I'm a prisoner in a visitation room, where that's what people do. They sit down, they share, they give it to me, and then they get up and they leave. And I can never, ever talk about it again.